And we are all but his vessels. And as we hear in a moment of things that we are doing around the state, you'll see how our agency fits that vessel. You see, I know what Dale's referring to in some of those initiatives that we've done. Let me tell you, many of us are just one paycheck away from experiencing the population that we serve. One paycheck away. Even I sit here telling you the same thing. We have done things in our agency that have never been done around the state of Texas. We have a president right now that is giving people around the country a second chance. That is one initiative that I love that he's doing. Think about it. We have an initiative right now that we're working on in Brownsville, Texas, where we are putting women who have felony convictions right now, felony convictions through a training. Why am I focusing on women? Because we have more women right now going into our prisons than men. And you see, the opportunities for men are abundant. But I have an individual that I've been following in California, and he's putting women through cybersecurity courses behind bars. And you know who that is? Some of you may know. That's MC Hammer. Now, I don't look as good as he does in those pants. But what he's doing is making change. And what he's done is reached out to industry. Why not give these individuals a second chance? You see, what I'm looking at are those individuals that have felony convictions, specifically felony convictions. Those that have been charged with nonviolent felonies. For example, those that are in prostitution, drug possession, and maybe even wrote a hot check. Those are nonviolent felony convictions. Why aren't we giving these individuals a second chance? You see, what happened is, when I spoke at the Goodwill annual conference, my job was to address 5,000 people in there and get them to donate money to Goodwill and say we have a good cause here. And I actually thought I did a pretty good job in my presentation. But here comes a young girl from Rockdale, a lady in her 30s that was incarcerated for writing bad checks. The day that she was convicted and sent to jail, her children were taken away from her. Let me tell you, I thought I had done a pretty good job in my presentation, but after hearing her, I said, I have to do something about that. And let's talk about the other populations that we're serving. So we're talking about people with a disability. People with a disability right now, why aren't we giving them a second chance? You see, in Dallas, what we've done is we've worked closely with CVS Pharmacy. So we have individuals right now that are confined to a wheelchair, some that have a visually impairment, that cannot see at all. And we're putting them through a pharmacy technician program, something that we've never done before, working with the business community. You see, they were focused, and it's part of their mission and vision to get this population, address them, and get them employed. 6-week apprenticeship pharmacy technician program. They all completed it, they all tested out, and they've all been certified. Now you may ask yourself, how can someone who's confined to a wheelchair actually be a pharmacy technician, work in a box store, and be of any service to me when I see the prescription drugs so high and the accommodations not available for them? Well, let me tell you what they've done is they place these people in call centers. So when you call a 1-800 number, CVS Pharmacy, who knows, you may be speaking to someone who is visually impaired. With the equipment and the services that we provide, the training and the Braille books that they're actually using to answer the questions that you may have. Let's talk about those transitioning veterans at Fort Bliss in El Paso. You see, a lot of these individuals have the best skills. Many of our law enforcement officers are probably transitioning veterans. And many of them possess skills that are needed in the industry. So what we're doing for individuals at Fort Bliss at no cost to them, not even using their GI Bill, what we're able to do is train them and let them receive certifications in cybersecurity. So now they possess not only the work experience, but the certification, which was a mandate by the governor to get these individuals in a certification so that they could be fully employed. So now we've talked about veterans, we've talked about women who are incarcerated, and then we've talked about people with a disability. But let's talk about another population that I know that it's been mentioned earlier as I've been here speaking to some of you, and that is those individuals that are transitioning out of foster care. You see, really, are we just providing services for them? Or are we allowing them to learn a trade and a skill? You see, every initiative that has come out of my office has always included, and you'll like to hear this, nonprofits. A nonprofit or an EDC can apply for these grants where you can work closely with the community college or you can work closely with the ISDs so that we can provide you money at no cost to the employer or no cost to the individual. The last thing I need for them to do is actually put money out of their own pocket. Let us pay for it. Technically, you're paying for it. You see, in the past, people have thought that TWC, which, by the way, my dad thinks I work at Time Warner Cable. Pastor, I don't know why he thinks that. I said, Dad, I work at Texas Workforce Commission. He goes, well, my friends are always asking me what you do. And I was telling him, you work at TWC. He goes, hey, how come you don't have free cable then? My dad is 77, my poor dad. Two things that are great that if I could say, two things this week have been something that I'll always remember. One, yesterday I turned 55. Today is, thank you. Today is my 3rd year anniversary working for Texas Workforce Commission.
Amen.
Yes. So you see, the things that I have been bringing out to you is we just don't serve those individuals like you all did when you had the fires here in Bastrop. Which, by the way, we have recovered very well. Look at the unemployment rate in this community. Look at it. Pat yourselves in the back. I saw something the other day that I thought was very interesting. And I tell you, it almost brought me, and I'm not a very emotional guy. Hey, I can't say that. Remember, I used to be a highway patrolman. But this almost made me cry when I read this, and it said, excuse me, remember what you wanted, what you currently have. I thought that was so touching. Remember what you wanted when you were a little kid, what you currently have. You know, I stayed at the Hampton last night. My parents never could afford to stay at the Hampton. You know, we were the kind of family that when we went on vacation, we went and stayed at a Motel 6. Not to offend anyone in here. But that was our vacation. My parents had never been north of Kingsville. So can you imagine when the governor in 2016 appointed me to this position? No one from the border town has ever been appointed to this position. So I know what it's like to live in a rural community. My dad lived in La Feria, Texas. You know, maybe 3,100 people. We lived in towns like La Chona. You ever heard of that? I don't even know what that means. I thought that was a cuss word, but that's a town nearby. I still don't know what it means, but I know it's a good place to hunt. But think about it. My parents never understanding the value of higher ed because they couldn't afford to go. Can you imagine when I told my father in 2016 that the governor of Texas called me and asked me to serve as the Texas Workforce Commission representing the interest of 19.3 million working individuals, every one of you that's in this room. Taking my dad and having the governor swear me in, my father had to rent a suit, well, I should say borrow, and it fit him big. Sleeves were longer than his arms, pants were long. But I tell you what, there was no prouder moment than to see my dad standing next to me. Now my father, being Julian Alvarez Jr., because he's the second, he was so nervous that when Governor Abbott asked me to raise my right hand, I asked my father to stand to my right. Governor asked me to raise my right hand. I placed my left hand. Unfortunately, my mother passed away at the age of 52 in 2000. So she couldn't be there, but I did ask the governor. All I ask is that we use my mother's Bible and a picture of her that's located inside. So putting my hand there, swearing in, my dad was so nervous that when the governor was swearing me in and said, Mr. Alvarez, will you please raise your right hand? My father raised his right hand too. So we have a backup plan there. And my sister-in-law kept putting my dad's hand down. I'm not a very emotional guy, but seeing women where I've gone to Lockhart and I've been to Gatesville, and literally being behind bars and experiencing what it's like, because this new initiative that I'm going to roll out are for those women who are incarcerated. Seeing those women, when I ask them, when you get out, what do you want to do? You're looking for a good man? You want some nice clothes? With a tear in their eye, I promise you, they said, I just want a job. And I want my kids back. Things that we take for granted, don't take. You mentioned your son. I would do anything for my mother to be sitting with me like Matt and his mother here today. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I would do anything. I would give it the career I have so that I could have one more day with my mother and tell her, Mom, you'd be proud of me. See, I think back about the days that when my parents would go, my grandparents would be north of here and work in the fields. You know, that was because that's all they could do. My parents did the same thing. And I always think back what they did in their life to get me where I'm at today. But I will tell you, Mayor, what got me here was not my education, was not my schooling, or even that I was a highway patrolman or worked for United States Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson. What got me here was my faith. Amen. And those that I've surrounded myself with.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be here. I could go on and on and on about all the great things that we're doing. But take time today, 30 seconds of your day, and just think about someone that you've touched in your life. And let me tell you, it's all worth it. Again, sometimes I go to the movies because I live by myself here. I go to the movies and I find myself just watching. I watched that Star is Born. And then I saw Bohemian Rhapsody. And one thing that movie had in common was it made me cry. And it made me cry, and I'm not even sure why. I mean, the movies were all right, but it was because I was thinking of how fortunate that I am to be able to serve this great state of ours. Amen. And for a young kid from a community and that probably had never seen a young man like myself go to college and become a commissioner representing labor. And where many of the young girls in my community only know of 3 occupations: housewives, cafeteria workers, and those that are maids. And now we're changing the lives of many of these individuals. Many of you that are in this room are doing that. And we appreciate that. Again, it's been an honor to be here. Next time I come, I want to be an honorary Bastrop. I do have 2 gifts that I'd like to give you. And again, please do me a favor. Thank those that prepared the food that we ate today. Thank those that have been able to provide us with such a great program, Mayor and Dale, and all of you that are here to take time to listen to a 5'6" ex-DPS trooper. It's an honor to be here. I get nervous on some speeches. That rarely happens, but today I was a little nervous because I've never addressed a mayor's prayer breakfast. But what an honor it is for me to go back and tell my fellow commissioners at the Time Warner Cable system that I got to speak to such a great group of folks. Thank you, and I will tell you that whenever you're at a hotel, which is something I did, and I apologize, I didn't have cash, I didn't know, I'll give you my debit card though. But when you stay somewhere, leave a little note like I always do. And just tell them thank you for such a clean room. It doesn't cost anything to do that. Or leave them $2 or $3 for a Coke. That's what I did this morning, and we should all be doing that. If you can. With that, Mayor, it was an honor to be here in the presence of all of you great folks. And Dale, thank you for allowing me to be here again in your great city.
I want to thank you very much. We also have a